Assetto Corsa Competizione looks like it's going to be one of the first driving simulators to release using the Unreal Engine. As a result of this, there appears to be quite a bit of confusion out there, as well as some misconceptions of what it means when a game uses the Unreal Engine. So, in this video, I'm going to be destroying those misconceptions like a GT3 car hitting a bunny rabbit at 130 miles per hour. Let's get into it. Now, this is true. Historically, the Unreal Engine has only really been used for arcade or unrealistic games. Of course, the original Unreal series of titles, then Unreal 2003, then all the console games that started using the Unreal Engine. Certainly, it hasn't historically been used as an engine for simulators. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been used for simulators and that it can't be used for simulators. Because at the end of the day, you have to think of game engines as very much like a framework where the developer picks and chooses which components of that framework they want to use, depending on the type of game that they're making or the type of simulator that they're making, and depending on their development budget, how much they're actually going to put into the engine themselves, develop themselves, or how much they're just going to take from the engine and reuse in its somewhat vanilla form. This of course also means that the physics will be not physics built into Unreal Engine, but kudos special physics. The obvious question then is, why use the Unreal Engine now, and why didn't developers use it in the past? Because it has looked pretty damn shiny, and it has actually been a very versatile development tool for quite a few years now. Simply and as quickly as possibly put, the Unreal Engine has got to a point now, probably in the last 2 years, where it just offers so much that for a developer to build something comparable that works to the same level and is as workable moving into the future to the same level is pretty much unfeasible. Now, this is the same, I would say, as well for the Unity game engine, and there's a couple of other engines on the market as well. But it's really got to a point now that the complexity of computer games has surpassed a level where 1, 2, maybe 3 people can get together and produce an engine for the studio to use that will meet the expectations of the consumer. Now, there's definitely a lot of people worrying about the Unreal Engine and its use for driving simulators, in that there's plenty of examples of games out there using the Unreal Engine that just run atrociously, whilst at the same time not even looking particularly nice. Now, I think it's fair to say at a basic level, the Unreal Engine is pretty heavy. Now, what that means is it requires a moderately fast computer to just run at a basic level. However, in relation to the actual visual fidelity, the lighting, the shadows, the amount of objects on screen, the way gameplay can be handled and various things loaded and managed, at its core, it's a pretty damn spectacular and well-optimized game engine and game framework. So why do we have these games that are absolute trash in terms of performance? The simple answer is, it's down to the developer to actually utilize the engine and get the most out of it and make the correct development choices from the get-go that are conducive to high frame rates. Let's not forget that the Unreal Engine is also used for mobile phone titles, and it's a multi-platform engine used to deliver games on the potatoes as well as the PCs. So, you know, it is very much down to the developer to get the results from it. And looking at the screenshots that we've had available, especially the latest dump of Brands Hatch, the best, most grassy circuit in the world, I have to say, Brands Hatch. Whoa, good old Brands Hatch. Looking at the screenshots of it, you can see that Kunos have been pretty lean with their implementation of things. I mean, there's a nice little bit of grass, there's hedges, but it is fairly cut down on the grand scheme of things, and compared to what you typically see in a more arcadey game, or like your typical shooter or other title built in the Unreal Engine, everything in ACC looks very well planned out, very well thought out, and in many ways built upon the design and development philosophy found with Assetto Corsa. And actually, strangely, there's been some criticism of the screenshots of ACC, and people going, oh, it just looks like AC with better shaders. Yes, I think it does. I mean, obviously there's more assets on the screen. I think there's more detail there. Personally, I really like how it looks. But you know, it's not a humongous, like, total next-gen jump, because I'm pretty sure having a high frame rate, smooth gameplay, and arousing physics is more important than having a billion objects rendered on screen so your eyes can't see anything. That would be nice as well in a driving simulator. But you know, you've got to pick and choose, and I think Kunos pick and choose concisely around what's important for a driving simulator. Now, I think this is an interesting one, in that in many ways I do agree that a lot of Unreal Engine based games do actually look very similar, and there's a good reason for this. You know, if you're using the same mathematical algorithms to cast shadows, light objects and deal with things, you will get a very similar approach to the end result, despite the end result maybe using different graphics. There'll just be a inkling of it being the same. Very much if a specific type of painter paints a different painting, you'll be able to tell it's from the same painter. And I have to say, one of the things I really enjoy jumping from game to game and playing different titles and different engines is just how they feel and look slightly different, and I just like those individual nuances. There's definitely a homely feel when you go back to play some older title in a specific engine, or other titles in a various engine, and you're like, oh yeah, you know, it just triggers something subconscious, and maybe that will indeed be lost if everyone uses the Unreal Engine. One thing that is, again, noticeable from the Assetto Corsa Competizione screenshots, however, is the difference in visual appearance from things like the models, the actual 3D models, like the Armco bridges, the tyres, various objects around the racetrack, and how they're actually built and put together is largely in the control of the individual developer and specific style choices of the artist putting those assets together, where they choose to put water damage, where they choose to bake in certain texture details, or how much a developer actually goes in capturing the real world details in the case of a driving simulator that's trying to replicate things one-to-one. One of the big things that stands out with ACC as a sort of stylistic choice is the way they've done the road texture. And if you've played Assetto Corsa, you'll notice they've gone for quite a high frequency road texture in terms of the asphalt and how bitty it looks. And this actually really does vary quite a lot from simulator to simulator, and has quite a big impact on the end result of the gameplay, surprisingly, and you might not have even considered it or realised what was going on. But for example, Project Cars 1 has a very detailed road texture in terms of little bits of tyre marks and the actual asphalt texture, compared to Project Cars 2, where it looks like they've gone for a more simplified road texture to better accommodate the fact that the road has more dynamic texture effects, so the way it can build up water and dirt and things, and how it can change. But the result was, in my opinion, Project Cars 1, the road actually looked way more detailed and gave a better sense of speed, because you could more easily see those details whiz past the car, whereas in Project Cars 2, the road can often look quite bland, and so there's less reference there for what's going past you, making Project Cars 2 feel slower in many cases. The end result being a stylistic choice in the texture execution, partly informed by the technical gubbins that's going on in the background there, ultimately has changed the end visual appearance of that game. In the case of Project Cars 1 and Project Cars 2, essentially the same engine, though obviously they developed on it quite a bit. And I definitely think it's going to be the case with driving simulators built in the Unreal Engine. You will very clearly see a difference in the end fidelity between ACC and GTR 3 when that comes out. I also think it's pretty fair to say that the screenshots of Assetto Corsa Competizione don't resemble the visual output of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite or PlayerUnknown's Battleground. In my opinion, ACC, as I said before earlier, very much looks like a progression from Assetto Corsa and carries that art style forwards. So, it's going to feel like an Unreal Engine game in a sense because of the lighting, the shaders, but I still think there's enough room there for developers to still show off their technical mastery and for players to feel as if each game is still different, distinct, and worthwhile enjoying visually for its own characteristics, outside of it just being another Unreal Engine title. Lastly, please don't kill me if ACC ends up being terrible and the hype train is derailed. At the end of the day, as it is always the case, on Earth as it is in heaven, the fact is, until you actually play the games, there's no way to know. It's entirely possible that ACC will have the annoying Unreal Engine texture loading when you first go to the track. Please, Kunos, just fade out, fade into the game so we can't see that, because it totally ruins Unreal Engine games for me. It makes me feel like I'm in a game, not in virtual reality. It's entirely possible that they'll ignore virtual reality. It's entirely possible that it will chug along like a velociraptor that's had its knee bitten off by a pterodactyl. That doesn't make any sense, but you can visually imagine it, and that would not be a good state or way for a game to perform, so we're sticking with that analogy. Yeah, let's see how it goes, guys. I'm on my hype train. Choo choo, all aboard. Train Simulator, old age, dead. Congratulations, dedicated souls, and those of you that have fallen asleep due to the relaxing background music. You have reached the end of this video. Whatever you do, you're absolutely categorically, unequivocally forbidden from subscribing and clicking the like button. Don't do it. Everyone's going to look down on you. You don't want to be associated with this channel or any of its content or any of the live streams. Don't watch the live streams after 5 PM when we typically live stream. Don't do that. Bad use of your time. Go and get an education. Be successful. Build your own game in Unreal. Buy a yacht. Go for a swim. Realise you weren't tethered to the yacht, the currents have carried you away, and you've been eaten by sharks. But look what you achieved in your life. Totally worthwhile. Well done. Till the next video, take care. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.